I'm Maya, a nurse, a mother, and a woman who once stood between two men, one who left me with a cold check, and one who said he loved me, but hid the truth just to keep me by his side. "You want to be a father?" I said. "Fathers don't bring federal investigations to their child's doorstep." That was the moment I almost walked away forever, until the truth surfaced. And no one expected the real betrayal to come from the man I trusted most. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe if you've ever fought through adversity for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The fluorescent lights in the NICU never sleep. Neither do I anymore. I pressed my palm against the incubator glass, watching Ezra's chest rise and fall in that mechanical rhythm that's become my new prayer. 28 weeks early. Hypoplastic left heart syndrome, HLHS they call it, like acronyms make nightmares smaller. His heart, the size of a walnut, working 3 times harder than it should just to keep him here. "Maya, you need to go home." Dr. Grant, Elias, stood beside me, coffee in hand. Always coffee. Always watching me with those concerned eyes that saw too much. "I am home," I whispered, not taking my eyes off my son. 3 months in Seattle, and this hospital room knew me better than my apartment did. The nurses at Emerald Sound Children's Hospital had stopped asking when I'd last eaten a real meal. I'd fled Chicago 6 months pregnant, divorce papers signed with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Now here I stood, another night shift, bleeding into dawn, functioning on stolen cat naps in supply closets. The other nurses covered for me when I disappeared to hold Ezra during his feeding times. They didn't know his father had wanted him gone before he even existed. "Board meeting today," someone mentioned at the nurses' station. "New owners doing a walkthrough." I barely registered it. Rich men in suits meant nothing when you're measuring life in heartbeats per minute. But then I saw him through the glass. Julian Wexler stood in the hallway, that same commanding presence that once made me believe in forever. His eyes found mine across the NICU, then dropped to the incubator, to Ezra. His face went white. Not the polite pallor of squeamish visitors seeing sick babies. This was recognition hitting like a physical blow. His hand reached for the wall, steadying himself. He knew, God help me, he knew. "Is that my—" Julian's voice cracked in the hallway. First time I'd heard him lose control of anything. "You don't get to finish that question." My voice came out steady, colder than the Seattle rain. 3 months of practice saying his name to Ezra had prepared me for this moment, though my hands trembled against my scrubs. Elias appeared like a guardian angel, positioning himself between us. "Mr. Wexler, this is a restricted area. Your tour is—" "I own this hospital." Julian's eyes never left mine. That calculated look I once mistook for depth. "I'm asking about that child." "That child has a name." The words scraped raw. "And a mother who's been here every single night since he was born. You're 7 months too late for questions." I watched him do the math. Saw the moment it clicked. 7 months since our last night together. When he'd chosen his political career over the life growing inside me. When he'd slid that check across the table and said, "Take care of it, Maya, for both our sakes." Elias's hand found my shoulder, warm and steady. Julian's jaw tightened at the gesture. "Maya needs to return to her shift," Elias said. But Julian had already turned away, phone pressed to his ear. Within hours, my supervisor called me in. Anonymous complaint about a nurse's unprofessional behavior during the board visit. My schedule got shuffled. Suddenly, I was working days when Julian toured at night. But cameras don't lie. The security footage I pulled up on my break showed everything. Julian standing outside the NICU at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., just watching through the glass. On the 5th night, I found a manila folder at the nurse's station with my name on it. Inside, Ezra's medical bills, stamped paid in full. No note, no signature. I tore it in half and left it on the CEO's desk. The next evening, Julian stood waiting by the NICU entrance. 7 months ago, I was a coward, he said quietly. But that boy, Ezra, he's mine, isn't he? Biology doesn't make you a father. I moved past him, but his words followed. Then let me earn it. Elias found me crying in the supply closet later, the first tears I'd allowed myself since Ezra's birth. "He doesn't deserve forgiveness," Elias said, pulling me close. And for a moment, I let myself lean into someone who'd been there all along. Julian became a ghost haunting our nights. I'd catch glimpses. A figure in an Armani suit sitting in the family lounge at 3 a.m., designer shoes walking the pediatric ward like he was mapping territory. He never approached, just existed in our periphery. Meanwhile, I was drowning. My body ran on muscle memory, drawing meds, adjusting IV drips, charting vitals. But inside, I was fragmenting. 32 hours straight on my feet. Hadn't seen my apartment in 4 days. The shower in the staff locker room had become my second home. "Take a week off," Elias suggested over lukewarm cafeteria coffee. "I'll cover Ezra's care personally." "I can't." The words came out automatic. What would I do with myself without the rhythm of machines keeping my son alive? "You're going to collapse, Maya. Then what good are you to him?" That night, I found Julian holding Ezra. I froze in the doorway. He'd somehow gotten past the NICU restrictions, past the nurses who should have stopped him. My son, so small in his father's uncertain hands, was awake, those dark eyes that mirrored Julian's own staring up at him. "Put him down," my voice barely a whisper. The nurse said, "She said it helps, skin to skin." His shirt was unbuttoned. Ezra's tiny body pressed against his chest. The baby's monitor showed steady rhythms, better than they'd been all week. "You have no right—" "5 minutes." His voice broke. "Please. Just 5 minutes." I should have called security, should have screamed. Instead, I sank into the chair and watched the man who'd tried to erase our son hold him like precious glass. Julian's hands that signed million-dollar deals, trembled as Ezra's fingers wrapped around his thumb. Then it happened. Ezra gripped tight, the first real movement beyond reflexes. Julian's tears came silent and sudden, dropping onto our son's blanket. "He's strong," Julian whispered. "Like you." I left without responding, but the image burned behind my eyelids. Father and son, skin to skin, hearts beating in the same broken rhythm. Elias found me in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. "He was with Ezra," I said. "I know, I authorized it." At my shocked look, he continued. "Maya, Ezra's vitals improved. Whatever you think of Julian, if his presence helps. You had no right to make that decision. I'm his doctor. I have every right." His professional mask slipped. "Unlike some people, I put Ezra first. Always." The accusation hung between us. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. I slid down the wall, knees to chest, and for the first time wondered if I was the selfish one, keeping father from son out of my own hurt. The alarm shattered the pre-dawn quiet. Not the gentle chime of routine monitors. This was the sound that made every nurse's blood freeze. "He's crashing!" Someone shoved me aside as the response team flooded in. Ezra's lips were blue. His tiny chest heaved, fighting for air that wouldn't come. "ECMO, now!" Elias's voice cut through the chaos. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, a machine to do what Ezra's heart couldn't. Last resort territory. I collapsed in the hallway, my knees hitting linoleum hard enough to bruise. The sound that came from my throat wasn't quite scream, wasn't quite sob. Something primal, the noise a mother makes when her child is ripped away. A janitor stopped mopping to stare. I didn't care. Julian appeared from nowhere, dropping beside me without words. His hand hovered near my shoulder, not quite touching, like he'd lost the right to comfort me. "Don't," I gasped between sobs. "Don't you dare." "I'm not leaving." 6 hours. The surgery took 6 hours. Julian never moved, a silent sentinel in his ruined suit. When I dozed against the wall from sheer exhaustion, I woke to find his jacket draped over me. Elias emerged, looking haggard. "He's stable, but Maya, but—" His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Ezra needs a new heart, within 30 days or—" "No." The word came out flat. "No, you fix him. You promised me—" "I can't fix what was never whole." Elias's professional composure cracked. "We need a miracle." Julian stood. "I'll make calls." There are lists, private channels. You think money solves everything? I laughed, bitter and sharp. You can't buy your way out of this one, Julian. Our son isn't a business deal. Our son. His voice went quiet. You said our? I hadn't meant to. The admission hung between us until Elias cleared his throat. There's something else. Elias turned to Julian. I know about your gubernatorial campaign, using a sick child for political sympathy. What campaign? I looked between them. Julian's face darkened. That's not? I was going to marry her. Elias's words fell like stones. In Chicago, before she ran, before you crawled back into her life with your crises and emergencies. The air went electric. Julian stepped forward. You think I planned this? You think I wanted... I think you're exactly who Maya said you were. Someone who walks away when things get difficult, then returns when it's convenient. Stop. I stood between them, these two men fighting over futures while my son's present hung by threads. Both of you, get out. They left, but not before I caught Elias's parting words to Julian. She chose me once. She'll remember why. 23 days left. The countdown began while I sat beside Ezra's ECMO machine, watching blood cycle through tubes, praying to any god who still listened to mothers with broken children. Julian rented an apartment 2 blocks from the hospital. I knew because the nurses talked about the CEO who'd stopped running his empire to study YouTube videos on diaper changing, about finding him in the Family Resource Center at midnight reading What to Expect the First Year with a highlighter. He asked me about tummy time, one nurse giggled, for a baby on ECMO. I wanted to hate him for trying. Instead, I watched from the doorway as he practiced swaddling with a doll from the teaching room, his $1 million hands clumsy with the blanket. He cursed, started over, again. The fold goes the other way, I said finally. He looked up, caught. Show me? I shouldn't have. But I crossed the room, took the doll, demonstrated the smooth motion I'd perfected in those terrifying first days. Like this. Secure but not tight. They need to feel held, not trapped. Maya, he started. 15 days left. I handed back the doll and walked out. Elias cornered me that afternoon with an iPad. You need to see this. TMZ's headline screamed, CEO's secret love child fighting for life. The photo showed Julian carrying coffee into the hospital. The article speculated about everything, the mother, the illness, his political aspirations. I started. I know you didn't leak it. Elias set down the tablet. But he did. Or his team. Classic sympathy play before announcing, you did this. The realization hit cold. You leaked that photo. Elias's silence was answer enough. How could you? My voice broke. Ezra's medical information. I protected you. He was using you both. You violated HIPAA. You could lose your license. I stepped back. You betrayed me. You betrayed my son. Maya, please, get out. Don't come near Ezra again unless it's medically necessary. I found Julian in the chapel, head in his hands. I didn't leak it, he said without looking up. I fired my entire PR team this morning for suggesting we should. I know. I sat beside him, too tired to maintain distance. It was Elias. We sat in silence, two people who'd loved each other wrong, united in fear for someone who'd loved us despite it all. I don't know how to do this, Julian whispered. Be a father. Be enough. Neither do I. Being a mother. I stared at the stained glass window, light fragmenting into colors Ezra had never seen. But he keeps fighting, so we keep trying. Julian's hand found mine. I didn't pull away. That night, the news vans arrived. Our private tragedy became public consumption. But inside the NICU, Ezra's heart kept its borrowed rhythm, counting down days we couldn't afford to lose. 12 days left. Day 28. The social worker spoke in gentle phrases designed not to shatter hope. Consider making memories, she said. Hand molds. Photos. I stopped listening. Stopped eating. Stopped pretending. Julian and I existed in separate orbits around Ezra's bed, two satellites afraid to collide. The media circus outside had grown. Reporters asking about the CEO's baby, the mysterious mother, the drama. We were a reality show nobody wanted to watch. Day 29 arrived with rain. I stood at Ezra's bedside, memorizing the curve of his nose, the dark wisps of hair that matched his father's. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't—" The door burst open. Elias, whom I hadn't seen in a week, rushed in. "There's been an accident. Motorcycle versus semi on I-5. My heart stopped. "Elias, I can't handle 9-month-old, brain dead." His words tumbled out. "Parents want to donate. Maya, the baby's name is River. He's been here before. Bed 12. Bed 12. The baby with the giraffe mobile whose mother always smiled at me in the hallway. River, who'd gone home healthy just last month. No. The word came out strangled. Not River. His parents, they were so happy. They want to meet you." The meeting blurred. River's mother held my hands while tears streamed down both our faces. "He loved that giraffe mobile," she whispered. "Ezra liked it too, didn't he? I remember watching you sing to him." "I can't take your baby's heart." "You're not taking." River's father's voice was steady through his grief. "We're giving. There's a difference." The surgery scheduled for midnight. Julian appeared as they wheeled Ezra away, both of us in surgical caps and gowns, allowed to walk him to the OR doors. "See you soon, little man," Julian whispered, kissing Ezra's forehead. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The doors closed. 8 hours. We sat in plastic chairs, not talking, not moving. Julian's hand found mine somewhere around hour 3. By hour 6, we were leaning against each other, too exhausted for pride. Elias emerged at dawn. "It's working. The heart's beating on its own." I collapsed. Julian caught me, held me while I sobbed. Grief for River, relief for Ezra, guilt for feeling both. "It's okay," he murmured. "It's okay to be grateful. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to feel everything." Through my tears, I saw Elias watching us, something like understanding in his eyes. He nodded once and walked away. Later, I wrote River's parents a letter. Told them about the giraffe mobile we'd moved to Ezra's bed, about how their son's heart was so strong it started beating before the surgeons expected, about how one boy's ending became another's beginning. Life measured in heartbeats. River's heart in Ezra's chest. A miracle called random that felt like grace. Recovery came in small victories. First breath without the ventilator. First full feeding. First time Ezra's eyes tracked my movement across the room. Julian documented everything with the focus he'd once reserved for merger acquisitions. "I'm withdrawing from the race," he announced one morning, setting the Seattle Times on my lap. The headline read, "Wexler ends gubernatorial bid, cites family priorities." "Your career means nothing." He pulled up a chair, looking exhausted but certain. "I'm also dismantling Wexler Capital's healthcare division. The profit margins on—" He stopped. "What we do to families like us. It's wrong." "Julian?" "The Ezra Fund." He handed me a folder. "Nonprofit. Covering transplant costs for families who can't afford them. I need a medical director. Someone who understands." This is guilt talking. This is love talking. His eyes met mine. "I failed you once. I won't fail him." But trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild with grand gestures. I watched him, waiting for the catch, the angle, the inevitable betrayal. It came through Elias, who found me during shift change. "He's being investigated," he said quietly. "Your boyfriend, SEC violations, campaign finance issues. When it breaks, he'll drag you both down." "You're lying." Elias pulled up his phone, showed me emails. "From my contact at the prosecutor's office. They're building a case." I confronted Julian that night. "The investigation. Tell me." His face went still. "How did you—" Elias. "Is it true?" "The investigation's real. But Maya, I'm cooperating. I'm trying to—" "You're always trying." I grabbed Ezra's discharge papers. "We're leaving. Tonight." "Maya, please." "You want to be his father? Fathers don't bring federal investigations to their children's doorsteps." But as I packed, doubt crept in. Julian hadn't hidden the investigation. He'd been surprised I knew. And Elias? Elias always had information at convenient moments. The next morning brought truth. The investigation wasn't into Julian, it was into the previous hospital owner, crimes Julian had uncovered and reported. Elias knew this, had twisted it. I found Elias in his office. You lied. I told you what you needed to hear. You told me what you wanted me to believe. I set down my badge. I'm requesting a transfer. New doctor for Ezra. Maya, I love you. No, you love the idea of saving me, but I'm not yours to save. I left him there, with his hero complex and manipulation. Found Julian holding Ezra in the family room, reading quarterly reports aloud because he claimed babies liked numbers. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. You were protecting him. Julian adjusted Ezra's blanket. That's what mothers do. What do fathers do? Stay, he said simply, even when they're told to leave. We brought Ezra home on a Thursday. Not to my cramped apartment or Julian's downtown penthouse, but to a rental in Tacoma with a yard and neighbors who didn't care about headlines. 2 bedrooms, separate spaces. Co-parents, nothing more. For now, Julian said, assembling the crib he'd spent 3 hours choosing. For now, I agreed. The letter to River's parents took me weeks to finish. How do you thank someone for their child's heart? Words felt hollow against the weight of their gift. Your son gave mine the chance to see autumn, I wrote finally. To know rain on windows and dogs barking and all the ordinary miracles I'd stopped noticing. Every beat of Ezra's heart carries River's rhythm. I promise to raise him knowing that love. Their response came 2 weeks later. A photo of River, grinning beneath his giraffe mobile. Let him live enough for both of them, his mother wrote. Julian found me crying over that letter. Wordlessly, he sat beside me, our son between us. Ezra, 3 months post-transplant, cheeks finally full, eyes bright, reached for both of us. His hands, no longer bird-fragile, gripped strong. I need to tell you something, I said. The night you gave me that check, after I left, I drove to the clinic. Julianne went rigid. I sat in the parking lot for 3 hours, had the appointment scheduled, walked to the door twice. I touched Ezra's chest, felt River's heart beating sure and steady. Then they did the ultrasound to confirm. And I heard it. This sound like hummingbird wings. His heart. He was the size of a lima bean, and he was fighting to exist. Maya. He chose to live. Even with half a heart. Even with a father who didn't want him and a mother falling apart. He chose to stay. I met Julian's eyes, so I chose to fight for him. I was scared, Julian whispered, of failing, of becoming my father, of loving something I could lose. We almost lost him anyway. But we didn't. His hand covered mine on Ezra's chest. We didn't. That night, as autumn rain drummed the windows, I watched Julian give Ezra his medications, precise and gentle. Watched him sing off-key lullabies he'd learned from YouTube. This man who'd orchestrated hostile takeovers couldn't manage a simple diaper change without 3 attempts, but he tried. God, he tried. Stay, I said as he headed for his room. Just for tonight. We lay on opposite sides of the bed, Ezra between us and his sleep nest. Somewhere in the darkness, Julian's hand found mine across our son's sleeping form. This isn't forgiveness, I whispered. I know. It's just a beginning. That's enough, he said. Beginning is everything. Outside, the rain gentled. Inside, Ezra breathed easy, River's heart keeping time. Tomorrow would bring medications and doctor visits and all the complexity of raising a transplant child. But tonight, we were simply 3 people learning to be a family, 1 heartbeat at a time.